Just 2 hours ago,
I authorized
American and coalition forces
to attack Baghdad,
enforcing the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1973.
These attacks continue as I speak.
that country
Must not be allowed.
to wage war.
Even yesterday, the international community offered
The dictator,
the opportunity to pursue an immediate ceasefire, but
by stalling and threatening and defying the United Nations,
he has ignored that opportunity.
So that country,
has abused its final chance.
now that conflict has come, the only way to limit its duration is to apply decisive force.
I am deeply aware of the risks.
I instructed our military commanders to take every necessary step to prevail as quickly as possible.
Make no mistake.
Bringing change
Will require our sustained commitment.
I've told the American people before that this will not be another Vietnam.
How did the 20-year war get started? It had been long assumed that the United States government, shortly before Iraq invaded Kuwait in August of 1990, gave Saddam Hussein a green light to attack. A State Department cable recently published by WikiLeaks confirmed that U.S. Ambassador April Glaspie did indeed have a conversation with Saddam Hussein 1 week prior to Iraq's August 1st, 1990 invasion of Kuwait. Amazingly, the released cable was entitled Saddam's Message of Friendship to President Bush. In it, Ambassador Glaspie affirmed to Saddam that the president, this is in quotes, the president had instructed her to broaden and deepen our relations with Iraq, close quote. As Saddam Hussein outlined Iraq's ongoing border dispute with Kuwait, Ambassador Glaspie was quite clear that, quote, we took no position on these Arab affairs, close quote. There would have been no reason for Saddam Hussein not to take this assurance at face value. The U.S. was quite supportive of his invasion and war of aggression against Iran in the 1980s. With this approval from the U.S. government, it wasn't surprising that the invasion occurred. The shock and surprise was how quickly the tables were turned and our friend, Saddam Hussein, all of a sudden became Hitler personified. The document was classified supposedly to protect national security, yet this information in no way jeopardized our security. Instead, it served to keep the truth from the American people about an event leading up to our initial military involvement in Iraq and the region that continues to today. The secrecy of the memo was designed to hide the truth from the American people and keep our government from being embarrassed. This was the initial event that had led to so much death and destruction, not to mention financial costs these past 20 years. Our response and persistent militarism toward Iraq was directly related to 9/11, as our presence on the Arabian Peninsula, and in particular Saudi Arabia, was listed by Al-Qaeda as a major grievance that outraged the radicals who carried out the heinous attacks against New York and Washington on that fateful day. Today, the conflict has spread through the Middle East and Central Asia with no end in sight. The reason this information is so important is that if Congress and the American people had known about this green light incident 20 years ago, they would have been a lot more reluctant to give a green light to our government to pursue the current war, a war that is ongoing and expanding to this very day. The tough question that remains is, was this done deliberately to create the justification to redesign the Middle East as many neoconservatives desired and to secure oil supplies for the West? Or was it just a diplomatic blunder followed up by many more strategic military blunders?
Ron Paul! Ron Paul! Ron Paul! Ron Paul!
So who is Ron Paul, and why is he trying to save our country? Well, he was born in 1935, and as a child worked on the family dairy farm. In high school, he excelled in sports, was student council president, and met his current wife of 54 years, Carol. He attended Gettysburg College and received a degree in biology before earning his MD from Duke University, working his way through school. After his residency, he served as a flight surgeon in the Air Force from 1963 to 65, and then in the Air National Guard from 65 to 68. He moved to Texas to train in obstetrics and gynecology, eventually delivering over 4,000 babies and raising 5 children of his own: Ronald, Lori, Randall, Senator, you might have heard of him, Robert, and Joy. When Ron Paul first ran for Congress in a special election in 1976, Carol warned him to be careful because, as she said, he just might win. And he did, but lost only months later by less than 300 votes. He won the seat back in 1978 and served until giving up his seat to return to medicine full-time in 1984. In 1988, he was the Libertarian Party nominee for president, and in 1996, he was re-elected to Congress. He does not participate in the lucrative congressional pension program and returns a portion of his annual congressional office budget to the U.S. Treasury every year. Ron Paul voted against the Patriot Act. Ron Paul voted against regulating the internet. He voted against the Iraq War. He's never voted to raise taxes. He has never voted for an unbalanced budget. He has never voted for a federal restriction on gun ownership. And he has never voted to raise congressional pay. In 2008, he ran for the Republican nomination for president, and his campaign was the best thing to happen for freedom in America in at least my lifetime. His campaign had the most fervent grassroots support. And it was more than just a dozen of us spammers in our parents' basements who were responsible for dozens of GOP straw poll victories. Thousands of Ron Paul meetups were formed, many on college campuses, eventually leading to the formation of the national organizations Campaign for Liberty and Young Americans for Liberty. Supporters also organized 2 historically unprecedented money bombs in which we raised over $4 million in one day and over $6 million with the next. He also received more campaign contributions from active duty service members than all other GOP candidates put together. Since then, he has won both the 2010 and 2011 CPAC presidential straw polls. On February 21st this year, we, the grassroots, raised over $700,000 in a money bomb to convince Ron Paul to run for president in 2012. On April 26th in Iowa, he formally announced the formation of an exploratory committee and is scheduled to participate in the first GOP presidential debate in South Carolina tomorrow. As he said in an email to supporters today, the grassroots have been organizing a money bomb on the day of the debate, and its success